Chapter 25 of the Curatage Ghost. Second last chapter. Everyone was looking at the hayrick fire, which in truth was turning out more successful than even they had hoped. The fire had lit a pile of animal fat-filled barrels, and these were now beginning to burn furiously, threatening the castle keep entrance. Soldiers were running up in platoons, all trying to stop it from spreading. And of course, there was no proper fire brigade with powerful hoses. Fires were very hard to put out in these times. A fact that wasn't working in Sir Max's favour either. Henry and Anne were dramatically lit by the flames as Catherine and Luka stole by them. They saw that the front of the bonfire was really taking off, but the back was not lit, and the soldiers had fled. Catherine leapt onto the branches, brandishing her knife, and in a few strides she was behind the tethered Sir Max, cutting away at his bonds. It was hot and smoky, getting hotter and smokier by the second. Luka ran up to help. At last all the ropes were cut and Catherine pulled a semi-conscious Sir Max towards her. Luka helped catch him. They scrambled as quickly as they could off the pile of logs and branches. The flames were very nearly a full circle by now. Some sparks started Luka's new ruff burning. He patted it furiously while they dragged the limp body under the gable of the castle main gate in the most secluded spot near at hand. The heat from the bonfire was searing. Catherine was face-slapping vigorously to try and get Sir Max going. Luka, having ripped off his charred ruff, was keeping guard and trying to plan the route out. He spotted a couple of sword sheaths with their weapons still in, obviously left by the soldiers hurrying to stifle the fire. He picked them up and was surprised how heavy they were. Sir Max was coming round. It was hard to tell if his red cheeks were to do with the fire that had so nearly consumed him or the amount of slapping Catherine had just inflicted. Suddenly he was on his feet. Urgency stamped on his features. He briefly looked surprised at seeing Catherine. Then a joyous expression spread over his florid, recently shaved face. Luka passed him a sword, kept one for himself. Sir Max did a sort of double take, seeing this short, black-faced boy, blonde hair and a black face. And then he led them round the wall and out of the unmanned gate, over the drawbridge, past the National Trust office. Well, it wasn't there then, but some old cottages were, and the outline of St Edward's Church was directly ahead, dramatically lit in a doom-laden orange-pink by the flickering flames behind them. Sir Max was all for going right by a miserable-looking little inn, but Luka pulled Catherine left, and after a moment's hesitation he followed. "Luka knows where to go!" shouted Catherine to make herself heard over the tumult behind them. "We have to get to the old house on the hill." "Ah, yes," said Sir Max. "To the tunnel." That was a spooky thought Luka. So, who was now leading the way through the graveyard and alongside the church? Suddenly and unexpectedly, two soldiers came running round the path and stopped in their tracks, seeing the fleeing group. Sir Max didn't hesitate and ran the first soldier through with his sword. But the second one was about to strike him before he could withdraw the weapon from the first poor soul. Luka dived in without thinking and speared the unlucky soldier, who fell in a crumpled heap, groaning as you would. They ran up the hill following a sort of path highlighted by the eerie firelight. They looked back and were now high above the main castle wall and could clearly see the pandemonium inside. There was a knot of people round the lower bonfire, and there was a lot of shouting and arm waving. They clearly now knew that their prisoner had escaped unburned. The other fire was so intense that the castle itself looked threatened. In a very short space of time, they found themselves at the back of the old house. Luka did not initially recognize any of it. There was a candle flame inside, but there was no back door. Luka remembered the secret door of childhood games and pulled Sir Max along a little side alleyway. And sure enough, there was the mysterious door. Sir Max was not hanging about, and he crashed open the door without ceremony. There was no one there. Luka knew where he was now, in the breakfast room, because he recognized at least some of the Inglenook fireplace on the left of the door. He knew the cellar was across the room and to his left. Catherine came in a rush behind him and slammed the door, in the process knocking Luka into the fireplace. His hand found a recess in the wall to steady him from falling, and something soft dropped onto the floor. Luka picked it up. It was a soft toy, a little man in an old outfit, and, well, you know, it was the leprechaun. He pushed it in his trousers. Sir Max strode across the room and stood in front of the old cellar door. Only now, well, it was a new door. He grabbed the candle and wrenched it open and went down the stairs. There was matting and old straw on the floor. Max cleared it away and found the tunnel lid. He was just starting to open it when they heard the sound of soldiers with their clanking, running noise outside. "Slam the door, page! Catherine, to me! To me!" Luka realized he was the page. He pulled the big door shut and found the bolt and slid it across. Sir Max pulled the heavy metal lid to one side. He looked around the cellar and just above the spot he was standing, pulled at a hidden trapdoor in the ceiling. He gestured to Catherine at the same time as there was a loud banging on the door. "Catherine, you must go up there. Take the page and lie still. I will lead them down the tunnel past your old prison. Methinks they will think you gone. Hurry, my love. We may meet soon or in another life." Catherine realized that he didn't know she was Catherine Mark II, but this was not the time to tell him. Max picked her up and lifted her through the trapdoor, and then almost threw Luka up too. They pulled up the trapdoor, but there was a small spy hole in it. Luka stayed to watch while Catherine climbed upwards. The cellar door burst open, and Sir Maximilian de la Pole had not moved. Luka realized he was going to sacrifice himself to create the illusion that the others had escaped. He was going to die for love. 4 soldiers rushed in. Maximilian was skilled with the sword, but frail after so much incarceration. He hurt 2 of them, but a third ran him through. Luka managed to stifle a giveaway gasp, but only just. Sir Max fell backwards and disappeared down the spiral staircase. The soldiers bearing torches followed on in short order. The cellar went black. Luka was crying. Catherine called to him. He climbed up the narrow passageway, sobbing as they went. "Sir Max, Sir Max, they killed him. They killed him." Somehow this did not come as any surprise to Catherine. She greeted the news with a sort of resigned equanimity. "Death is around us, poor Luka. Maximilian and I can't dodge our fate. What is written is written. I fear I am dead too, and as for you, come to me. Let us squeeze in this crevice and think of happier times." Luka climbed up and accepted her embrace. It was so dark. They were so lost. It was all so hopeless. "Oh, I love this old house," said Luka. "If this is really the end, At least it's somewhere Yaya, Amelie and Esme have been to too. I think the old house loved Luka too, because then the draft started. It was a breeze, then a wind, and now a howling gale. Luka and Catherine clung to each other. They could feel themselves being propelled upwards with ever-increasing velocity. 500 years later, it was a good job Esme had removed the trunk, as it would have bashed Luka's head in. As it was, he shot out like a cork from the bottle, rolled over several times, and fell through the hole in the ceiling that Esme had obligingly made for him. Catherine climbed out behind him, solid flesh, not a ghost, and sat herself down in the dark to think on things. End of chapter 25 of the Curatage Ghost.